Good evening, everyone. Calling the meeting to order. We are the Board of Selectmen, soon to be the Select Board. It is August 13th, 2018 at 7:15 p.m. And with us today, we have a Selectman. All the way to my right is Selectman John Hurd. To my right is Selectman Joe Curo. Selectwoman Diane Mahan is running a few minutes late. She'll be with us shortly. Selectman Kevin Greeley, all the way to my left. Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine. Town Council Doug Heim. And Board Administrator Marie Kropelka are all here to help us out. So I often start meetings with a quote, but I actually learned a new word this weekend, and so I thought we'd share the new word. The new word is gallimaufry, G-A-L-L-I-M-A-U-F-R-Y, which is a confused jumble or medley of things. And I looked at our agenda, and I was looking for a theme, and I said, no, there is no theme. We have a gallimaufry of issues on the agenda tonight. So, with that, we have two things on the agenda of note, or of unusual note. One is we've got an emergency addendum because of the alewife situation, which happened after we set the agenda, and so that's, and I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to bring that up. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the door to see if a couple people come in that said they might come in to talk about that. So I'm going to pull that up out of order at some point. But what I am going to pull up right out of order right from the beginning is number 15, which is a request for a handicap parking sign at 31 Magnolia Street. So we have a report here from the police department, and it is a Mr. Ronchetti. And come on up to the mic and just give a, we've got your application, we've got the report from the police. If you could just share with us a brief description. If you could stand at that microphone and just, yep, exactly, and speak into it. Please.
I'm here representing my husband, who's very sick. He got out of the hospital on Saturday, will return tomorrow. He started with pancreatitis. In January, he got flesh-eating disease. We've been dealing with this about a year and a half now.
We certainly wish him and the best fast recovery, and we certainly will have our sympathies to you and your family.
I appreciate that.
Let's hope he turns around quickly.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I'd like to move approval of the request. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Curo, seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. So now I'm going to, for a minute, go back to the order of the agenda, but I am going to pull up alewife out of order in a few minutes. First up is the Wheelabrator community gift. Do we have...
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
John Farisi is actually unable to make it tonight and asked if he could be bumped to the next meeting.
I'm sure we can do that.
So move, table.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. It is tabled. Let's see, I'm just trying to, yeah, I'm gonna hang it, I'm really torn about whether I should wait for Diane on the beer garden or alewife, or just plow forward.
Consent.
Sorry? Oh, do the consent agenda, thank you. All right, skipping down to the consent agenda, which is items 5 through 12. We have the minutes of meetings for July 16th. We have a slew of reappointments. For Michael Rademacher for the Commission on Disabilities, Jill Greenlee on the Council on Aging, Sheila Keaty-Rawson on the Human Resource Board, Jennifer Rothenberg on the Parks and Recreation Commission, Veterans Council, William Hainer, Patrick Quinn, and Anne Marie Russo. We also have a special one-day all-alcohol license for Anirudh Janji at the Whittemore Robbins House. We have a beer and wine license for the Town Day Beer Garden. We have a one-day all-alcohol license for the fundraiser at the Jason Russell House for the Arlington Historical Society, Oktoberfest at Old Schwab Mill on October 13th, Arlington Belmont Crew lawn signs, and an all-alcohol license revision. This is for Town Tavern. This is a license that we approved at a previous meeting, but the ABCC asked for it in a different form. But it's substantively the same. So that is our consent agenda. Is anyone here for anyone of the items on the consent agenda? Okay, I'm sure that we're going to sail. If you come on up. So I see you, Mr. Hainer. If you do you wish to speak? No. Okay.
I have a few questions for Mr. Hainer.
Oh, do you? Mr. You had something you want? Yeah.
Oh, we just asked you to approve. We approved once. The ABC wants it as a transfer as opposed to a new license, so we get to fill the forms out again.
Excellent. And there's thank you, Mr. Leone. And there's a gentleman farther back in a light blue shirt.
Yes, I'm Ed Gordon.
Actually, you can take your time. Come on up. Tell us about it.
My name is Ed Gordon. I'm Director of Museum Programs at the Old Schwam Mill, and we are requesting a one-day permit to serve alcohol at the mill's, beer specifically, at the mill's second annual Oktoberfest that will take place on Saturday, October 13th, from 12 to 4 in the afternoon.
Excellent. And if someone wanted to learn more about it, where would they go?
So they would go to our website, www.oldschwammill.org, or you can call the mill at 781-643-0554, or come to the mill. There'll be plenty of advertisements around town and so on.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to consent agenda? Do I have a motion? Oh, come on up. You want to come on up to the microphone? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not sorry. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to speak. I'm Rosemary Berg, Arlington Bella Crew Team. Do I speak now or no?
You certainly may. You do not have to. The good things about the consent agenda is that we say yes to everything.
Okay. Okay.
But it's a chance to use for free advertising, or and so if you have something you want to say, then please, this is
great.
You've got millions of viewers at home.
Okay. Millions, great. Okay, well, thank you very much for having me here tonight. And I also want to say thank you particularly to the town of Arlington for their strong support of the Arlington Belmont Crew Team. We row out of Spy Pond, Pond Lane, and the school department has been extremely supportive. The recreation department, the town fathers, everyone across the board has been very supportive of our crew team. So our request tonight is to put up lawn signs. We're on a push to encourage new members to our particularly novice squads. We're a very successful team. We'd like to build up the membership, and we truly welcome members of Arlington High School students to apply. Actually, it's no application. You can walk on. It's a walk-on sport. We welcome everyone. abcrewteam.org, and we hope to encourage Arlington high school students to join the team. It's great fun.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr.
Chair,
Chair.
I actually had a note on this,
please.
on this one. First of all, thank you. For this type of sign request, you had one of the most thorough submissions, I think, that we don't always get the photographs of all the proposed locations, so we appreciate it. The only thing I just want to mention is some of them look like they're directly abutting some private land, so you just want to make sure, like I saw Kickstand and Anton's there.
Yes.
So you probably want to just make sure when you place them that they know about it and you're not encroaching their property.
Great. Our thought is just to pick a couple of these spots on town-owned property, and then parents who live in Arlington and Belmont are also going to be encouraged to put them on their private property as well. But thank you. Good point.
Okay. Mr. Greeley.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to get involved with this, because they may grow up to become chairman of the board, of the select board. We found out earlier that our chairman was a silver medalist in a national crew competition when he was in college.
Yeah, I got a silver in the IRAs.
Congratulations.
With Coxon,
Congratulations.
yeah.
Very
Thank you.
good.
As I refer to it, 80 pounds ago.
Yes, as we all.
Say that.
Wonderful. Thanks again for
Thank
your
you.
Arlington support.
Very welcome. Anyone else want to speak to items on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion?
Move approval subject to all conditions as set forth.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Guerrero, second by Mr. Greeley. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. So I am now going to pull up the emergency addendum, which is for discussion, AOI parking garage status and strategies for mitigating neighborhood impacts. And the timing is perfect because just as I announced. All right. Welcome. So on Friday, the town, in the afternoon, the town was notified by a call to the town manager's office that Alewife was going to be closed, and the parking garage was going to be closed. And at the time, there was a real concern that it wasn't going to be open in time for Monday. And so I put this emergency agenda item on at that time because I didn't know if we were going to have to think about things like parking regulations or things like that. I believe at this time that because the lot is now open every morning and closing at night, and they're asking everybody to leave for a few hours overnight while they're continuing to do inspections and repairs. And so I don't believe that there's any emergency action that the board should entertain, but I do think that, especially since we got Representative Garbely and Senator
Friedman.
Exactly. I was like Senator Cindy.
Friedman.
Senator Cindy is where my head was. Senator Friedman with us. That I think a brief discussion is in order about what we should do next. So I guess I'm going to ask why don't the two of you come on up, and if you've got any. Do you want to hear from? Why don't you? I'm sure I have some thoughts. I'm sure some other select board members have thoughts. Why don't you go ahead and then we'll.
We are anxious to hear your thoughts. We did go to the Fiscal Control Board meeting today, and they, so we, kind of laid out where we were, and I stayed, and the general manager gave his report, and in it they did talk about Alewife, and what they said was that next weekend they're going to be doing repairs again. It'll be closed, and they'll be doing repairs and inspections as well as every night. And then starting in September, they are going to spend $5.8 million on repairs, which is part of a $14.8 or $5 million budget item that they now have in their 5-year capital plan. And then they are going to develop a long-term plan for Alewife. There was some concern on the board that they didn't actually know about the November report that had said there was an imminent risk of failures. And they asked the general manager, who I don't believe was there last November, that in the future, when they get reports like that, they really ought to tell the board. And they also, so we had asked in this meeting that they do 3 things. One is tell us exactly what they're going to do with the $5.8 billion, what exactly the long-term plan is, and to reverse the parking fees. And in fact, we said they needed to actually make it free until they fixed it. They didn't respond. Right. But they did respond later on when the general manager gave his report. They asked the general manager to come up with, to show them by September the plan that was going to be in place for Alewife. I followed up with the phone call. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we're going to push that we see that plan and that we know exactly what that $5 million and the but, this is all part of them saving money. And the whole goal is saving money. And, and what happens is they take each emergency, my sense is, and I think we all agree, that they take each emergency as it comes. So it's really, really important to keep the pressure on them. We had written a letter actually in early July to them, and I think I gave it to you. We sent a copy to you all that basically said, what are you doing? And don't increase the fees, fix the parking garage. So there was a number of things that we've done over the past, but until this actually particular piece of concrete has fallen, as opposed to the February piece that had fallen, they hadn't paid much attention.
Cool.
I think that's the sort of status that we have right now.
Excuse me.
Sean, did you have stuff you wanted to?
As Senator Friedman laid out this morning, we attended along with State Senator Patricia Jalen in the next district of Medford and Somerville and Cambridge.
She actually, it's in her district.
Yeah.
It's in her district. And, we articulated to the Fiscal Management Board how furious we were with the lack of accountability and the fact, as the Senator mentioned, this report came out in November, and it didn't say it may be in jeopardy. It said it was imminent, and for us to not know about it, for there not to be a plan in November to deal with it is, it's not only not necessary, it's unconscionable. And I think we articulated that, both Senator Freeman and myself, this morning. As the Senator mentioned, this is all about squeezing pennies, and it's the long-term plan that, the T has a $5 billion debt, and as long as that debt from the Big Dig is on top of it, and 35 cents in every dollar goes to debt service, we have a serious problem. And so it's one the legislature and the governor needs to tackle. But just maintaining accountability for their property, they haven't taken any accountability. And this administration needs to do that. They need to own it. And so we're going to be continuing to work to hold them accountable.
Cool. Thank you. Board members, do you have, so I guess opportunity for, if we have questions for our delegation, or if we just have general comments we want to make. I just want to say it's an emergency item, and that we don't, if we want to just keep it moving along, so not dwell on it for too long. So anybody have something? Diane?
I would actually defer to the chair,
Okay.
who raised this issue at our goal-setting meeting in July. Maybe just do a quick encapsulation and then put this on a future agenda, because I think we all have action steps, but it was the chairman who.
Yeah, so I had, I'm a daily Alewife user. Sometimes I bike there and sometimes I drive there. And, it wasn't like, when you see the piles of gravel in the corner, that there's problems. And so I had asked the manager to query with the MBTA, and they sent us a copy of that November report. And we had looked at it and we said, what the heck are we going to do with this? And so at our goal-setting meeting, we talked about it, and our plan is to work with, off the top of my head, I believe we should talk to Belmont, Lexington, and Medford, because I think that those are the truly affected communities in this way, and see if we can work to lobby the MBTA about this. Then I think the sky fell, and then it got some light shined on it. And so I think the things that I'm hoping to use this event for is exactly what you just said, which is I think the thing that I really liked hearing was talking about the plan in November of how we're going to fix this, because that's the thing that's been missing from this, as far as, from my limited perspective, that's the thing that's been missing on this. And as a board, we would be remiss if we didn't take this opportunity to remind the delegation and the state and the MBTA that we pay like $1 million more than Quincy does, because we are scored 4 times. We're scored at a 12, and Quincy is scored at a 3 in the funding formula that's in that statute that was written in 1970, whatever. So this would be a good time to remind them that we don't get what we pay for.
So we actually did raise that and said that we were well beyond what, when we pointed out Quincy and Braintree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Braintree's even worse. It's worse compared to Braintree. We did also say that, when you talked to them, that we expected a better partnership, and that if they were going to ask the cities and towns around to take the burden of parking, that they needed to either find a way to compensate the cities and towns, or at least work with them in a partnership to figure out whether that was going to work or not, and how they could help the towns make that work. So so we brought that issue up as well.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Okay.
Further comment, Mr. Greeley?
Well, just when we discussed it, when you brought it up at our goal-setting meeting, something that Mr. Cura also mentioned, and I'm curious, has this exacerbated our parking issue in the east, with people parking there all day and going to Alewife, especially where I saw, wasn't like 100 spaces closed for a while, or was it 100?
So on Thursday night, they closed 500. And then over the weekend, it was 2,500. That was the whole thing.
Wow.
And I will say that today, when I used it, a lot of people were scared off. There were a lot of spaces that were empty at Alewife this morning when I got there.
But your point is well taken, because there's been at least 100 spaces closed for how many years? I mean,
At
for
least
years.
4.
And they mentioned that it was up to full capacity, and it wasn't during the public participation, so we couldn't say,
Wait a minute.
wait a minute. It hasn't been up to capacity for years, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Yeah, but also I think, Kevin, your point about, we have to keep an eye on what happens in East Arlington, see if it has an effect there. And if we do, then we'll see it again. All right. Any further thoughts from anyone? Thank you both for being at the meeting this morning. Thank you both for coming in tonight. We really appreciate it, your efforts on getting Alewife better.
Yeah,
Let's-
well, we're happy to help, and I'm sure you'll keep us posted.
Yeah, let's keep that September report. We should really hold their feet to the fire on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. From here on out, I actually plan on using the agenda in order. All right. Number 2 is the beer garden update request for approval on Saturdays. Ally Carter. Welcome. Introduce yourself, and we've read your report, but why don't you share what the contents are, and go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ally Carter. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for the town. Thank you for having me here tonight. Just to summarize, the beer garden has taken place 3 Saturdays so far, July 7th, 14th, and 21st. Unfortunately, it's been rainy the last few weekends, and we've had a few cancellations of the event. There's been approximately 1,500 guests at every event. The majority of attendees who responded to our survey said they came specifically for the beer garden. There's been a lot of positive feedback in terms of attendees, what they thought of it, in terms of money that they spent elsewhere in the community, even though they mostly came just to go to the beer garden, and from business owners in the center. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
And so you're asking, so the request is for us to approve the September licenses?
Correct, yeah, and there's an application for that.
Diane?
I don't know if this is the right juncture, the right point in time. First, I want to say I've had 3 pretty vocal opponents, town titular leaders that we're all familiar with, but I didn't get their permission to say their names, who came up to me individually and said I was totally wrong on this one. You know, I really opposed this, and all 3 had been down there and had said how well run it was, how impressed they were with the crowd, also crowd management, and also the disbursement into the rest of Arlington Center. And all 3 also said, some said individual things, basically, you know, the next day by Monday, you really wouldn't know that that event had taken place if you gauged it by any leftover trash or trampolines or anything like that. So I think it was really, you know, I'll let my colleagues know individually. It's 3 people we all know. But my question for you, and if this isn't the right point, just let me know. I know when one of the other points that not just some people who were critical, but also some people who supported it, was when we granted permission for the beer garden, we really set a nominal fee. And what the board and the town manager and yourself discussed was that at some point in the future, we would evaluate, first of all, to see if this was a success, which it seems to be. So my question would be, is September too premature? Do you want to go at least to the end of September to revisit that really nominal fee that we gave out to the beer garden coordinator ownership? And/or the second part of my question would be, how are we going to calculate, sorry, I got something else, calculate that particular fee as an approximation? Am I asking that question prematurely?
I'll take a shot at that. No, certainly not a premature question. I guess the first part I would respond by saying, at the meeting that the board did approve the beer garden, the vote was approving the September Saturdays contingent upon this report being successful. So I would think changing the fee right now for September would maybe be premature given that. However, I do think we need to look at it next year. I think this was a pilot. This was a test to see if it's going to work well. And I can't describe for you exactly how we will calculate it, but I think we want to figure out a way that better represents a balance of the use of public space and the private benefit that the brewery receives from utilizing it for a beer garden. So I can't cite a figure, but I think we want to create a far better balance in the charge for next year.
Just to follow up on that, now, and I don't know if this is appropriate, and I'd leave it to you and Ally and Attorney Heim. I don't know if there's any sort of, I don't know if there's confidentiality issues, and/or if there's any legal and/or not legal implied sort of reciprocity in terms of when you all do sit down at the end of the year with the individuals from the Beer Garden, if legally they should, or if they just want to do on their own in terms of, you know, how profitable. I know everyone, I'm from the restaurant business, Chateau, and my family and all that, but I would just leave it out to you, maybe to have that sort of a conversation. Not that that should be the be-all, end-all guide, but I also think a lot of people have said to me, we're really giving this space at really cheap money, and by the amount of attendees that are going there, it certainly looks like a profitable, which is what I want, venture. So I don't know if that question can be answered now.
So I can say to date, Aeronaut has been very forthcoming with data and financial figures to Ally, so I can't firmly answer it tonight, but I would imagine they would continue to be open to share that data with us so that we can understand that better for next year.
And I'm not looking to really parse away from their profits or anything like that, because I'm also thinking if there was another future use by another entity, just like that would be something that I could just sort of gauge that. So I'm not saying that if they say they made $100 and we want 10% or 20%, that sort of a thing. But just in terms of, because for me, trying to, you know, when I said to people, well, what do you think would be an appropriate fee to lease out, rent out the Jefferson Cutter? We say park, but it's really not a park. It's the front of the Jefferson Cutter, and nobody could arrive at that. So that's something you're all thinking of. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Greeley.
First thing I want to say is well done, Ally. Well done, Aeronaut. I'm so excited about it, to be honest. I couldn't get in. I didn't have my ID with me, so I couldn't prove I was of age.
I'm making a face back here.
But I have driven by it a number of times and very impressed with the activity. And I've made a point of driving by on Sunday mornings. I can't believe how I can't tell that there were 1,000 people there yesterday. Literally, I mean, I think you're just doing a fantastic job setting it up and cleaning it up. Then I went by and there was nobody, and I was shocked. I was like, what, they closed it down already? But can there be some sort of signal when it's not going to be held? Is it thunderstorms or rain? I don't know what the rule is, but it surprised me that it was empty. I was like, that's the day I was going to go in there, yeah.
The first week was tricky because the forecast looked really bad, but then there was no rain.
Yeah.
After that first week, we put together a protocol for communications and who should connect with whom and how we should announce it so that the word does get out better.
Okay.
And I think the last 2 weeks, unfortunately, it's been 3 weeks in a row, but I think we've had practice now and it's working a little bit better.
Well done. Move approval for the licenses for September. Right, isn't that what we're asking for today?
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Hurd.
I second the comment that, I had a great time at the Beer Garden. I was excited about this before. I thought it'd be good for the businesses, and I think it's been successful when they've had it. Other people that I know that have gone both to the Beer Garden, enjoyed the Beer Garden, and everyone has gone and patronized the businesses. I mentioned this before, so I think it's been a success. I was a little disappointed that we removed the Sundays. I know there's logistical issues, but, especially, hindsight's 2020. With the cancellations, we were kind of rolling with this, and then it faded away. Specifically last week, I had a number of friends that wanted to go to the Beer Garden, and we ended up going to a Beer Garden in Charlestown, which we wanted to go in Arlington. So is there a way, with all the cancellations, I can't imagine that there's going to be another Saturday for rain, but is there a way that it can be set up that if we can't do a Saturday, there's an automatic Sunday, or was that something that that the board would consider? Is that something that the brewery would consider, that where if we have a cancellation on a Saturday, we can have it on Sunday?
I think that's for Aeronaut to answer in terms
Yeah,
of the flexibility of their staffing.
Defer to Ron.
So I know we're putting you on the spot, so just remind us of us and the millions watching at home who you are and.
I'm Ron Friedlander. I'm one of the owners of Aeronaut Brewing. And I guess the question is, can we set it up so that Sundays are sort of the rain days that we'd hold?
Yeah.
I think we were thinking kind of the same thing after some of the comments about, how it was a shame that we made the call. The first week we canceled, we made the call, and then it just didn't rain, and we were like, So I think, I don't want to, Michael, who's sitting back here, does more of the staffing stuff, so I don't want to speak for him, but that's something I would like to do. Maybe we could consider doing that in September if that's a way, if something we could get approval for, then I would like that. So.
Okay.
So I'd like to amend my motion, if I may, to move approval for Saturday licenses through September, and if need be, a rain date license for Sundays. Can I say it like that, Doug?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And so one question if you can. So
John.
are we, newbie, are we still on Town Day not having any beer garden that weekend?
But we're doing.
They're gonna regroup somewhere else.
Okay.
Because the Jefferson is gonna be taken, we had some couches for Town Day, and
Yeah.
Front is taken by us, really.
Okay.
But the beer garden is going down on Lamson Way, which is bigger than over here, so it should
Okay.
be able to accommodate.
Okay. And I also, it's funny, Kevin mentioned, I texted Adam that first day it got canceled. I was in the center. I said, what did Aaron ditch us here?
I was there too with two different families of friends. When I walked into the park, and I was like, "Where is everybody?"
And my first reaction was to go on Arlington Media, and no one happened. So
Yeah, so now we post it on the town's
Yeah.
social media sites. They post it on their.
now I get the
social
Twitter
media
updates. So
Yeah.
sites. Yeah.
all right.
All set, John?
Yep.
Joe?
I'm also a big fan of Beer Garden, went down with my family. It's a very family-friendly event. I really appreciated it. I thought that Aeronaut did a great job checking IDs at the entrance with the wristbands. Wristbands are very visible. And it was a nice, relaxing event. I'll tell you, I work at a larger employer out on 128, and a lot of the people there were aware of it, and if they hadn't come, were planning to come, and not all of them lived in Arlington. So I think in that sense, it achieves what we want. I think a lot of you all know, I have just one issue with the way that we've set this up, is that we do have this event in a family-friendly event in the public park, and I really have a problem with us refusing entry to anyone. So we're refusing entry to those who are under 21. If they're not with a parent, and I'm pretty sure I saw even an interaction of, some bikers who are going by, they're in their 20s, they want to come in, they want to hear the music, buy something from Tango or whatnot, and hang out. And I really hope, I'd like to ask the board to consider removing that as a restriction. My observation was that the bands are extremely visible. As a matter of fact, I think I was at something later on one Saturday where I ran into Mr. Hurd, and other people knew that exactly where he had been, because he had his bright green band. The detail officer is very, very present, and there's security on the site. Earlier this evening, we approved an Oktoberfest down at the Old Schwann Mill, which is also handled by Aeronaut. It's not as enclosed a space. It doesn't have that restriction. I was there last year, and I'm not aware. There's a representative of Old Schwann Mill. Were there any problems there that you're aware of last year? No, okay. I'd really like to ask the board to consider removing that as a restriction. I think that it just sends a bad message when we're closing off a public park like that, especially for folks who are coming by. This is, a music family event. Beer is sold. You don't have to buy beer to come in. You shouldn't have to have an ID to enter the public space. That's my feeling. That's one part of what I wanted to say. And I also think we have a great opportunity here too. We have our planning director here and all to really observe too some of the ways in which people are
using the space when it's activated, because I know we have a big initiative underway there. So I don't know what kind of reaction there is from either Aeronaut or my colleagues to removing that as a restriction or a condition for the license. I think the concern was pass around, but certainly we've certainly approved other situations like theaters where the risk is much higher, I think, than out in broad daylight with the presence of a police detail and a lot of eyes.
Could we hear from Aeronaut on that, what their reaction is?
So at our pretty much anywhere where we're serving, anywhere where we're the license holder, this has been our policy. It's become our policy pretty much everywhere. It's sort of a best practice, and that's why we've adopted it. So for us, it's the main thing is we don't want to run afoul of the ABCC. We want to make sure we're doing our best effort to police the appropriate age. But yeah, so I think if we were going to do anything different than that, we'd probably have to consult with our insurance and do a little bit of digging on our own to make sure that, I don't know, to see whether it would even be something they would recommend.
Without, through the chair, I mean, without digging too deep, I mean, wouldn't this be an issue down at Schwann Mill too?
Yeah, I don't know what the policy was there, but
we didn't put such a restriction on that, and I know that the Oktoberfest portion is held on public land.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something if that was the policy that we used then, that was last year, but I think pretty much that's been the policy that we've gone by, which is if you're with a parent, it's okay, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Anybody else?
I guess just an answer to Mr. Carroll's question. I'd like to leave it the way it is right now. I think the Schwann Mill is really, really different event. I don't think you're going to see any kids young adults under 21 that will be going down by themselves down. Or maybe you will. Does someone want to chime back? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. You want to hear it?
Okay, well, I think we're hearing, no, and then I do want to hear, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think we're hearing from the gentleman from Aeronaut that making a change right now midstream before he consults with his insurance and/or attorneys would be premature. Sorry.
Come on up. I just...
I'm going to try to explain the way we did it at the Old Schwann Mill for Oktoberfest. And I think that people were, if they were over 21, they could get a wrist bracelet. Those were the only people that were served beer, and that was controlled by the Aeronaut staff who managed the beer table. And so people had to go get their ID checked at the beer table before they would be able to be served a beer. So there was a built-in control. There were plenty of people under 21 at Oktoberfest.
No, I'm not saying there weren't.
But if they didn't have a bracelet, they wouldn't get a beer. So, and Aeronaut staff managed all that. So we felt very confident that, they were doing that properly. So I think it's the same thing at Wintermore Park. That's how they do it. If you don't have a wristband, you don't get a beer.
At Jefferson Carter? Yeah.
Yeah.
I miscommunicated because I don't think you understand where I was going. I apologize.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much. Joe?
No, I was just going to say, the difference is you don't
Yeah.
you don't get entrance if you don't have a band at Whittemore Park.
So I guess one thought is, so we can set our policy, and Aeronaut can set theirs, and there's another level which is for us to dictate what Aeronaut's policy shall be. And I definitely don't, I'm not looking to take, I certainly would be opposed to that step. I can't imagine being persuaded. Mm-hmm. I could be definitely persuaded to take the step that Joe recommends, which is for us to take off our requirement. I also am not in a super hurry to do it this year. But that said, having gone to one of these events myself, and this is the upbeat part of it, I sent an email to Allie afterwards. I had so much fun. It was just such an experience for me to be there And there were so many people who I didn't know. You know, you go to Town Day, there's a lot of people you know. You go to, like the hockey rink, there's a lot of people you know. You go to you go buy your Christmas tree, Boys and Girls Club, there's a lot of people you know. There were people I'd never met before, and it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And so having seen that and actually experienced it, I'm also not worried about underage people getting drinks. You know, it is, as they say, it is broad daylight, and the adult ratio is very, very high. You know, it's not like you're down at Hills Hill. You know, there is a real serious presence going on there. So, but I don't know. I guess it's up to somebody. If somebody wants to actually make an amendment, then now is your moment. And other than that, we can wait till next year.
So I will move to amend the main motion to remove the restriction, the age restriction for entrance to Whittemore Robbins Park.
All right, we got a motion.
Okay.
Well, I'll second the discussion.
Yeah, that's fine.
Seconded by Mr. Greeley.
I'm undecided about it, to be
Yeah.
honest. Aeronaut's point on their insurance, I hate to say this, but, part of the reason town night became such a problem is so many kids with shaving cream and running around and no parental supervision and, I'm not saying that could happen, but I just, I'm hesitant.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be hesitant to dictate to Aeronaut how to run their beer garden, especially where their safety concerns are more stringent than what we're asking for. I think this is something that we can look at in the off-season, so to speak, towards next year to make it a little more friendly for that age level. And to me, it was always to try to cordon off a section of Whittemore Robbins, whereas could be, the entrance there that's now blocked off, an area where someone that couldn't get into the beer garden could sit and listen to the music. But, I think that for right now, where we stand, I think the best thing is to just move forward as is.
I can count.
Yeah, all right.
I can withdraw my motion.
All right. I would, at least personally, Joe, I'd encourage you to, let's talk about it again next year.
Yeah.
We've got some months to do some groundwork. All right, so we have I'm going to withdraw Joe's amendment. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. Ms. Carter, you are also item number 3 for approval, plan for signs and heights. Ally Carter, Economic Development Coordinator.
Yes, thank you again. So I'm sure you're aware, for a long time, there's been some signage in place at the intersection of Mass Ave and Park Ave. It had fallen into disrepair. DPW took it in over the course of last winter, restored them. They look great now. There is a space on the sign where there used to be a printed business directory, which, given the technology that people have in hand today, does not seem like the most viable use of that space. So there's been requests, 3 that I've gotten personally to date, for community groups that would like to use that space, to use it as an announcement board, similar to what we have in front of Town Hall. And just to sort of add something to the sign so it wouldn't be blank if it were not in that use. There's been drafting with the Old Schwam Mill and some local historians of some historical pictures and like a little vignette that could go permanently underneath the sign, like a vinyl application, so that in between events when there's not temporary signage up, there could be something attractive and educational there in its place.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion second. Is there discussion? Is there any wayfinding on there that's going to be there, or is it all going to be like, any sort of?
Not as
plan?
current, so we don't
Okay.
have the design finished for what would go underneath, so there's
Okay.
plenty of time for input on that.
Yeah.
I could come back.
It would be, I'm certainly not at like requirement level, but I would just be thinking about because I agree with, with the phone, you know where you're going most of the time, but there can be a little bit of serendipity of like what else is there to do here. So I would just keep that open for consideration.
Thank you, I will.
Just to add to that, consequently, in the picture, that looks like somebody's using this board to try to find some of the businesses.
If I can qualify, that's from the community cleanup day. So they're cleaning it. But you can see there's like a seal in the middle that's sort of fallen off, and they were in really bad shape. DPW did a great job.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Creation of Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. Jenny Raitt, Director of Planning and Community Development. Welcome, Jenny.
Welcome to me and to Erin Zwerko,
Oh,
who's the
hi.
Assistant Director. So the two of us actually will be talking about this memo today. I'm Jennifer Raitt, I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development. The memo that you have before you talks about some affordable housing funds that the town received somewhat long time ago that have been sitting in an account, and we want to find a way to move those into the right purpose, which is for the creation of or support of affordable housing. So we are proposing, in essence, a number of steps that we would like to take now, and then looking at the long term, some maybe more permanent steps, including the creation of a municipal affordable housing trust fund, which would allow us to, at least in the immediate, be able to expend the funds for the purpose that we know is what they are supposed to be there for, but then in the long run be able to also maybe accept additional funding to go into that trust, which is what the purpose of a trust fund is actually for. So the two different funding sources are just in brief. One came actually from the Sims redevelopment, which was put into place as part of the land disposition agreement. It was a total of $178,300. $150,000 of that is actually meant to be a portion to go towards affordable housing and the creation of additional affordable housing. However, it stayed in that account since the time that it was donated to the town. The second amount of funding actually is about $28,000-ish, which was given to the town, we think, back in 2000, 2001, and was some sort of inclusionary, basically through inclusionary housing. At the time that the legacy was developed in Arlington Center, our understanding is that there may have been an offset of funding provided to the town. The size of that development at the time, we didn't have inclusionary zoning actually in place, even though that's a very large development. And so the town was able to then generate some funds from that developer, which went into this account, and similar to the Sims account, has stayed the same ever since. So with Erin's assistance, we've been able to do a little bit of research, and also in coordination with Adam and Doug, and looking at the options in terms of what we can do to move this forward for now. Again, we also have some opportunities to move on things, to create affordable housing. We'd like to be able to do that. And then, of course, for the long term, think about something more permanent. So it is the creation of an advisory group, but I would say that that's just one step in the process. So if it's okay,
please
allow Erin to introduce herself and talk more about it.
So again, I'm Erin Zwerko. I'm the Assistant Director.
Come on up to the mic.
Hired in April of this year. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. But as Jenny said, we did some research into the funding that are in these two accounts, and she gave a good overview of what they are. What is proposed in the memo that was attached to the agenda item is a creation of an advisory committee that would assist the select board in allocating and dispersing that funding. Granted, it's a very small amount at this time, but it has been sitting for over a decade and could be very helpful for a developer to close a funding gap, or for other purposes to buy down units, that type of effort. So the advisory committee is proposed to be not more than 9 people. The memo sort of outlines the recommended representation. They I would recommend that the advisory committee have a public process to develop an action plan by which they make recommendations to the select board on how to disperse that funding. And there's a draft application form attached to the memo, which is based off of the current CDBG application form, just slightly briefer. So through that public process, the advisory committee could develop an action plan and see to the disbursement of this relatively small amount of money. Again, as Jenny had mentioned, I don't think that this would preclude the community from advancing a full municipal housing trust through which CPA funds and home funds could be deposited and be allocated and used for affordable housing efforts in a more expeditious manner. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you.
Move approval?
Second.
Joe?
I just had one question. I just want to make just clarification. I want to make sure I understood. If we set up the committee and the Affordable Housing Trust, it would be acceptable for the Community Preservation Committee through town meeting to appropriate into the trust fund for future affordable housing needs? Am I understanding that mechanism correctly?
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were to go down the road of creating the trust fund, that yes, both CDBG funds and CPA funds could be approved or appropriated.
To go into the trust fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Diane?
I want to commend you on realizing we had a decade-old. It's not a great amount of money, but I can tell you, someone sitting at home looking for any help in affordable housing, that sounds like an awful lot of money. What I get from your proposal with the 9-member committee, that yes, it is a small nominal amount of money, but initially these monies will be directed towards whatever affordable housing outreach that we can do versus the committee coming back saying, oh, we can hire someone for $112,000 that will tell us that we need more affordable housing or something like that. Now, what I would anticipate from the committee is perhaps, when the committee is formed and there's some brainstorming, you all may say, this particular affordable housing committee could apply for a grant that might get us somebody part-time or something like that. So I'm not precluding that. I'm just saying this initial pot, shouldn't say pot. And then one of the other things that I sort of gleaned from the information that you all provided was that, and what you just said at the microphone, both of you, is the committee would look at possible future revenue avenues, funding avenues in terms of as we go forward, and a lot of this would maybe go through also the town manager and Attorney Heim, who have representation on this committee, in terms of, we could say, if this in the future, then it is applicable or is something we, the town of Arlington, can do to say, part of our approval is, I don't want to say a nominal amount, but an amount to go into this. So my first thing, which you made very clear in here, I just wanted to make a statement that, yes, it's only 178.3 or 178.5, but that's not going just to hire a person. That may happen in the future if you identify a grant or something else opens up in the town budget, but with override and stuff coming forward. And like I said, I'm not precluding that, so. But I think I'm pretty clear that that's the message that you gave us all in your memo.
The intention is to use the funding to actually create and preserve affordable housing units. And then if we have administrative expenses or something like a planning initiative, I think that would be a broader, conversation with the committee. We would also, as Erin has suggested, we would create a plan in terms of expending the funds, and most importantly, we would be following and implementing the housing production plan, which really speaks to creation of units.
And if I could just, I spent a lot of my time down in the projects that call Menominee. I live down there, where you say it's sort of a small amount. I know you'll probably be looking at things that I know a lot of people, sometimes when you can't get affordable housing unit, sometimes just coming up with first, last, or security, maybe that's something, some kind of program like that. But I know you're all going to be looking at that. So I don't mean to be sarcastic and say it's a nominal amount, because to some people, $178,300 is a lot. But that's going to be your job, not ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Greeley?
Well, I'm curious What, will this create a competitive situation when it comes to CDBG and CPA, which we, CDBG certainly give a substantial portion of it. So I'm concerned about that. I'm, you know.
Can I take a crack at that? So I think there's two things that Jenny and Aaron have described tonight. One is the establishment, or the request to establish this advisory committee.
Right, I see that part of it, right.
That could simply just meet to advise on how to spend this $178,300 and potentially do no more, right? Or if it's successful, it could lay the groundwork for establishing a municipal affordable housing trust. So let's say that was to happen. I wouldn't necessarily see it as a competitor so much as a different vehicle for the same funds. So rather than waiting for town meeting every year for the approval of a large sum of money from either the CPA or CDBG for an affordable housing project, rather, you would wait, right, for town meeting, but you'd put a sum of money for affordable housing into the trust fund, then via this advisory committee and then the vote of the Board of Selectmen could be expended at any time of the year for an affordable housing project. So it wouldn't be creating necessarily more competition, just changing the vehicle through which the funding was given to the projects themselves.
Yeah, well, a dollar can only go a dollar. So if we have two choices now, it seems to me, I mean, what's the difference between a trust and a corporation, I guess? Right, a housing corp versus...
Oh, well, the housing corp is a private nonprofit.
Right. And this is a town...
So, but the Housing Corporation of Arlington would likely be the first applicant to this trust fund to utilize. So it doesn't take money away from them. It gives them a different vehicle to apply to.
But it certainly could at CDBG.
May I?
If we chose, yeah.
Right, I understand, I'm just, right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Jenny?
We didn't envision it as, it's certainly not a private nonprofit corporation in any way. It could have, one of the functions could be that it acquires property or holds on to property or something along those lines, but not to develop it and own it and manage it like the way that, housing corporation or other entity might. So it wouldn't be working in competition. If anything, it would be able to provide additional resources where they're needed. So if we actually did go the extra step to creating an affordable housing trust fund, we could actually start to get more inclusionary or payment in lieu of or other types of payments that would then become available for more developers of affordable housing. Not specifically the town developing the affordable housing, but being able to move that out. So that would be actually an advantage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I share the same concerns that Mr. Greeley does, about, particularly about the trust fund. So, because I'm really happy with the way the Arlington Housing Corporation runs, and I worry about, I just don't see, I do not yet perceive the value of a trust fund. The good news is we're not voting on that tonight. But we are voting on an advisory committee tonight, and I can definitely support creating the advisory committee. I will say, if you'd come forward and you'd said, we've got this $178,000, and here's this memo, and here are the 3 things we think we should go do, I would be supporting that too. I think that I don't actually feel like I need this advisory committee to make a decision. That said, I certainly respect your choice to say, this is the way you want to do it, and I'm happy to support that. I'm definitely, I'm a long way from understanding the value of the trust fund, but we can worry about that bridge, or worry about that one when we actually get there. So I do think that Mrs. Mahan made a motion, and I did not write down who seconded it, unfortunately. Joe, okay, thank you. Is there further discussion on the creation of this advisory committee? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, licenses and permits. Common victualler license for Luigi's Italian Kitchen, 242 Massachusetts Avenue. Kevin and Lisa Cronin.
Hi, my name is Kevin.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
Are you going to serve us galamafri?
What's that?
Were you here for the beginning of the meeting?
Yes.
Are you going to serve us galamafri?
Oh.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I missed it. I wasn't
I'm
here.
out.
Sorry.
chaos.
It was. Introduce yourself, please.
Kevin
Welcome.
Cronin.
Lisa Cronin.
Tell us about your application and what you're opening.
So we own property at 242 Mass Ave. It used to be Sabatino's Italian Kitchen. We have gone ahead and renovated the whole building over and would like to open Luigi's Italian Kitchen.
All right. Questions?
Move approval?
Second.
Let's move approval subject to conditions, I'm sure. Any further discussion? Sabatino's had a calzone with chicken and pepperoni in it that was my Saturday or Sunday football favorite.
Okay.
Well, it's the same cook.
Is that?
Yeah, we actually have a third partner, and he's the gentleman that's been there for about 18 years running the place and the cook, so.
All right. I know what I want.
Chicken pepperoni calzone,
It
okay.
was really
got it.
tasty. Anybody else? Oh, Kevin.
Did someone already move approval? Okay. How did Kevin and Lisa Cronin come up with Luigi's?
That's her job, go ahead.
My great-grandfather started Pizzeria Regina in the North End, and his name was Luigi, but even more importantly, my father is Luigi.
Good for you.
Well,
Good luck.
Lewis, no more as Lewis now.
Thanks for choosing Arlington. Good luck.
All right. All those, further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next up, public entertainment and alteration of premise license, commune kitchen, Richard Nidwicki? Welcome. Tell us about your business and the change you're trying to make.
Well, we're Commune Kitchen.
I'm Justin. And that's Richard. We both own Commune Kitchen.
Excellent.
So we're at 203 Broadway, and we currently have a beer and wine license for indoors. We wanted to, so we have that, but we also have some seats outside currently, but we can't serve alcohol out there, and so we just want to extend the alcohol license to those 3 tables, about 6 seats total.
Move approval. Second, Mr. Kiro, sorry, I cut you off, Mr. Kiro, go ahead.
All right, so we've got a motion and we've got a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Oh, thanks very much.
You thought it was going to be harder?
Aren't there 2 other issues here, or?
Oh, was there? Oh.
Or there's the entertainment license
as well.
Oh, see, this is why, thank you, Mr. Greeley, for keeping me on track. All right, why don't you talk about that, please?
Sure. So we just wanted to drum up some business on slow nights and bring in other people. So we thought maybe one night a week we'd do like trivia night or something. Not anything that would be loud or disturb the neighborhood or anything like that. But
Maybe some acoustic music, trivia night, stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. When you talk, you could come closer to the mic because you're kind of quiet.
Maybe some acoustic music, nothing like full band or neighborhood disturbing, just, ways to get people in on a slow Wednesday. Trivia night's popular, stuff like that.
Sounds good.
No neighborhood disturbing, so I won't be coming to the karaoke that's listed here.
Yes. All right. Questions, motion?
Move approval subject to all conditions as set forth.
Second.
Mr. Carroll, Mr. Greeley. I'll definitely say that with neighbors, I know you've clearly said you're thinking about this. Amplification is the challenge. And sometimes it can be helpful, especially before you do your first event or two, to knock on doors and leaflet neighbors and tell them that it's coming and give them a number to contact people. Because a lot of times it'll be, you won't know that you're being annoying, and they don't feel like they have a way to tell you, and that's when the things get boiled. But when there's a direct communication, it goes so much easier. So I definitely encourage you guys to.
We can break the ice first.
Yeah, that is really the right way to do it. All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Alteration of premises, kitchen change. Is that? No?
I think that was just for the outdoors to rope out the tables for the
Got
alcohol.
it. So then we're, okay, there's just 2 votes.
2, not
Okay,
3.
all right,
Sorry,
thank you. I had lost track that there were multiple votes, and now I just want to keep going. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right, citizens open forum. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which this open forum is established. It should be noted there's a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. And there's nobody signed up. Is anybody here? Doesn't look like anybody's here for open forum. Open forum is closed. We already did number 15. Number 16, Haiku Bikeway Project. Adria Arch. We hit this pace and all of a sudden things start moving quickly.
Yes. Actually, Adria is away, out of town, so I'm here to make the presentation. I'm Cecily Miller. I'm the public art curator. I work closely with Adria.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me tonight. This is actually a project that Arlington Public Art is doing collaboratively with the Bike Committee here in Arlington. And so Christopher is going to run my presentation. With the agenda, you got a report that also included some of the continuation of pathways. And I'm not going to take up time on the agenda since you have that kind of reported. But I did want to say that it's going very well integrating Arlington Public Art and Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture. And the Pathways project last year was kind of our first collaboration where the advisory committee for the project was made up of members of both groups. And so we're really happy to be continuing that and trying to really work closely together and raise all boats. So I wanted to thank you for your encouragement about that.
Good, glad to hear it.
So is that thing working, Christopher?
Some issues. They're actually not showing up there. I don't know if...
Yeah, they're not showing up on the monitor.
Which may or may not be on.
Oh, right.
Did he connect it? It was on before.
Oh. Something's going. There you go.
I just sort of thought a visual is important because you'd have a million questions if you didn't see the visual. Plus, it has my notes for doing my presentation. But essentially, as you know, the 25th anniversary of the Bikeway was celebrated in Arlington last year. In Lexington and Bedford, their anniversary is this year.
Sorry, I'm laughing at something that has nothing to do with your presentation. I apologize.
No, that's all right. So, well, I'll just sort of lay the, so this year, the 3 towns, the bike committees of the 3 towns have joined forces to plan a celebration that's the whole length, the whole 10 miles of the Bikeway. And the group, through Christopher, invited me to come because they were inspired by the work that we've been doing in the cultural district here in Arlington and wanted to do something similar. There wasn't really a budget or infrastructure for this, so I tried to come up with a project idea that we could collaborate on and that would connect the 3 towns and would give the communities a way to participate, because really this Bikeway is a kind of amazing public space that a lot of people use and love and have memories of, and they should be a part of the celebration. So building on Nilu Muchala's piece last year, which was called Rhetoric of Opposites, which had pairs of words painted on the surface of the Bikeway, and a lot of people really very much enjoyed. So we can just go right down to where there's a green background. So just, you can skip all the blue background.
The
Yeah.
Bikeway, yeah.
Right. So, so building on Nilu's concept of using text on the path as a sort of a way of getting, something into a public space for people to enjoy, we came up with this idea of haiku inspired by the Bikeway. So now we could look at the next slide. And all 3 of the bike committees have been, involved. That's involved in kind of planning this, and this is an example of a haiku written by Jack Johnson, who's one of the members of the Arlington Bicycle Advisory Committee. Hope for bicycling
Humbly gets us around town.
while saving our world.
That one was hard to read.
And so about a month and a half ago, I started testing different paints and different typefaces and the spacing of the lines. And we made a number of decisions. One is that each line will be 30 feet apart so that people don't stop on the path and stare at the haiku and create accidents. You have to keep moving to read it. So this would actually not be the way it will be laid out. We're using chalk paint. We found a product that seems to last between 2 months and mysteriously 2 weeks. Seems to depend on the weather conditions in the area. So now we can go to the next slide. We've been doing outreach, which included stenciling right on the bike path an invitation to write haiku. A couple different funny little poems that we came up with to invite, that are haiku themselves, to invite people to write haiku. A local poet, Jesse Brown, helped us hold an outreach day at the Kickstand, hosted by the Kickstand, where we put different haiku people had written up on the windows and encouraged people passing by to write haiku. And the next one, we had a wonderful, Jessie also taught a wonderful workshop at the Robbins Library, which Joe was at. And she got people deeper into haiku so that you can write haiku that actually is funny or topical or surprising and not just limited to the beauties of nature, but also exploring kind of the social life of the town. And on the 18th, we'll be having another just outreach sort of session at the Uncle Sam Plaza, and 5 poets are going to be there to talk with people about how to write poetry. And then this is just our goals, being to unite the 3 towns of Arlington, Lexington, and Bedford by installing a collaborative temporary public art project, connecting the towns along a major shared resource, the bikeway. So we're really trying to work together, and part of the format of using the same font and the same paint sort of shows that partnership. To involve the public in the 25th anniversary celebration by inviting them to participate through poetry, to engage the public in creative expression. So we're really asking the artists to put the art in this public art piece with their own writing, and to share their memories of nature, family, friendships, and special moments on the bikeway. And then, of course, just to celebrate the bikeway and promote environmental stewardship and respect for diverse users. Some of you may have seen one of the haiku threads on the Arlington list where people got into composing haiku about, slow down, it's not the Tour de France. So, and the next slide, I think, shows, our consulting artist, Liz Lamanche, testing out one of her stencils. So that's sort of the size of a line, and you can see the spacing, get a sense of the spacing. There's a line further in the distance so that we'll keep people moving. I think that might be it. I don't remember if there's one more. So then you have these in your packet. These are some of the wonderful poems that people have submitted so far, ranging in age from like 6, 7 up to older people, including people who are living in assisted living and maybe don't even get out to the path now, but they still have very rich memories of using it. So I love this small child in tutu pedaling furiously, tiny spurt of joy. It's really been a pleasure to organize this. So that's the project.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Kira.
I'd like to move receipt of the report.
We have a motion.
Motion to receive.
Is there a second?
Second.
And could you let folks know if they're looking to submit what the deadline is and how they do that?
So you go to bikewayhaiku.org, which has guidelines for submission and a interactive place where you can send in your submission, or you can send an email to bikewayhaiku@gmail.com. And we've extended the deadline, which was next Monday in a week. We've extended it to Friday, the 25th, since we're going to be doing this outreach event this weekend. And we'll have typewriters, and we'll also have magic markers, and people can stop by when they're biking on the path, or when they're at the beer garden, they can take a break from drinking beer and come over and write a haiku. So, thank you, Joe, for...
Questions, discussion?
Well, my father always used to say, sometimes it's better to be quiet and thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. So here I open my mouth. What is a haiku? Is it supposed to be, is it a 14-word poem?
Thank you for saying that. No, actually, thank you for bringing up that question. It's a 3-line poem.
3-line, okay.
The first line is 5 syllables, the second line is 7 syllables, and the third line is, again, 5 syllables. And all of that is on our website, bikewayhaiku.org, not .com, bikewayhaiku.org. And probably if you just do a Google search for haiku on the Minuteman Bikeway, it will come up. And all of the submissions that we've received so far are also on that site. So, and some examples by professional poets too, and some tips.
Thank you.
Yeah,
They don't
no,
have
thank
to
you for
rhyme at the
asking.
end of the sentence.
No,
I
it
picked
doesn't
that
have
up.
to rhyme.
I did get that. No, I mean, I kind of know what it was, but.
Good. Okay,
Any
great.
further discussion? All right, got a motion from Joe, seconded by Mr. Hurd.
No,
It was many people. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And
Mr. Tonkin, request support for Minuteman Bikeway 25th Anniversary Celebration on September 29th.
Move approval.
Yes, hello. Christopher Tongan, Chairman of the Arlington Bicycle Advisory Committee. I live in the Heights. I've been there since 1987. So I think that's enough about me. The 25th anniversary of the Bikeway opening in Arlington was last year, as we're well aware. We had a number of events last year that we coordinated and actually went off quite successfully. However, it was actually the official opening of the entire length is this year. It was 25 years ago this year. And as you're well aware, committees can be difficult to herd. If you've got 3 groups of committees from different towns, it's like herding cats. So we've been working diligently to try and get some events coordinated through the 3 towns. We came up with a date, which is the 29th, which is near Town Day on purpose because the weather is often good. It couldn't be the weekend after because that's Bedford Town Day, so we came with the 29th. This is the day we're hoping that it'll be a great celebration of the bikeway along its entire length, to which end there will be haikus from Alewife to Bedford Depot in both directions in all 3 towns. There will also be music events along the bikeway in all 3 towns. There in Arlington, we're proposing 3 locations at Magnolia Field, at Linwood Circle at Spy Pond. I always forget that street name, I'm afraid. And at Trader Joe's, and also the Aeronaut, because we're going to coordinate with the Aeronaut Brewery. So we have a built-in party, so to speak, which is great. And they're going to be acoustic mainly, or non-professional performers. Nobody's getting paid for this. And we have a coordinator who's coordinating all this. And we're also endeavoring to get the governor to come and give his blessing or something like that, because we know he's very keen on rail trails and increasing the network. We have him on, potentially on the radar. And with a letter I submitted that to you, I think, in the package, that to try and get the 3 towns, or you on behalf of the 3 towns, I'm not sure, we may need some sort of discussion how we do this, to go to his office, so.
That'll be like 38 days before election, so I can't imagine.
Well, who knows?
No, I can't imagine he'll be at home.
Yes, I know. So, but, whatever, it's just, getting it there. There was a proclamation from the state that it will be the Bikeway Day or something like that. So, things have been happening that way. So, anyway, that's all I can tell you in a nutshell. It's late, so I'm trying to get it speed up a bit.
Thank you. Questions? Motion?
I did move.
Oh, you're right, he did. I apologize, Mr. Greeley. Seconded by Mrs. Mahan. Questions?
So I wasn't, do you want a proclamation from the board as well?
That wouldn't hurt. I seem to remember you did a proclamation when we had the opening back in, or was it the opening when the Rails to Trails? There was some event that you gave a proclamation on a really cold, miserable day, I seem to remember, outside the Jefferson Cutter House. I was very new to the bike committee in those days and really wasn't, I was in the background. But that's all I can remember about that.
Yeah, I think
Sure, I mean, the board would like to do that.
so.
Well, it would be somebody from this committee that will coordinate with the
Yeah.
select board's office. And
Right.
Let's do that. Yep, I agree.
And when and where, right.
Okay.
I
Well, I
could
believe
write it.
the aeronaut has microphones, so if you want to make it loud, that would be
Yeah.
a good place.
Okay.
maybe you could write it in haiku.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I'm out.
That does increase the degree.
I'll read it, but.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one thing, because I know that my understanding is you're interested in the cultural groups in town working together. The music coordinator for this is Dave Harris, who's on the Arlington Cultural Commission. And again, because of these increased communication of our groups, we were able to rope him in. He's a very accomplished musician himself and knows the folks at the high school and other private music schools here. So he's putting together the music for these stages. And are we doing Trader Joe's? Is that?
Yes, that's it. That's the one.
That's a third. So Aeronaut and then Trader Joe's also so it should be pretty great to have music all along there.
4 spots.
I mean, the other thing I wanted to say, the rail trail is very much a binding ribbon that runs through Arlington, and it's a lot happens along its route, and it's something that's been a great addition to town. I think it's something that we should really celebrate as much as possible and advocate for and advertise as something to bring people to Arlington, either permanently or just for the day.
Thanks.
All right, further discussion? All right, motion by Mr. Greeley, second by Mr. Mahan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you very much. All right, next up, discussion of Lime Bike Share Operator License to increase 150 to 300. Mr. Heim.
As the board will recall, the board originally approved a licensing scheme for up to 300 bicycles. Unfortunately, under the MAPC procurement process, one of our 2 vendors who was a successful bidder, Spin, has now withdrawn from the bicycle game. So Lime is asking to increase their license from 150 to 300. I don't actually have a formal request from them, so I don't know if the board wants to table them. I don't see Lime's representative here. In short, the planning department did its analysis in conjunction with the vendors. They believed that 300 bicycles was about the right number for Arlington. Lime is ready, willing, and able to step in and provide those 300 bicycles. In fact, when they originally submitted their application, that was what they were hoping to place in Arlington, but they quite, graciously and amenably worked it out between the 2 vendors that they would each have 150. So I don't know if the board wants to take action, if the board wants to wait, but that's the situation.
So if I may, and apologies for any miscommunication between town council and myself, this was initiated at my request, not at Lime's request.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked the planning department to work with Lime because the board's original scheme had called for 300 bikes. It seemed to have been a popular program getting started, and really, frankly, from my anecdotal feeling that after the rollout, there started to be less bikes available based on their distribution through the town, and less being available either in the neighborhoods or in the central business districts. So certainly waiting for a Lime representative could make sense, but this was done at my request to get up to the 300 bikes that the board originally had anticipated.
Mr. Greeley.
I move approval.
Second.
So let me, I had, over the weekend, or Friday, I last week, I emailed Adam, and knowing this was coming, I asked Lime for some more information. And so Lime shared, for instance, the number of bikes that are in Arlington night by night for the last 2 weeks. And so from July 30th to August 12th, the numbers like 99, 110, 108, 111, 9.99, 101, 110, so on and so forth, it averaged to 100.5. And they also said that they were getting, Arlington bikes are averaging 1.5 trips per vehicle per day. 1.5 to 2, which they said is generally healthy and would warrant an increase. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, we licensed 150, but there's only 100 in town. Like, let's get the 150 in town. But then I thought, but I'm also, I guess one of the things I wanted to explore tonight is, did we say that there's 150 that, like, essentially, they have like the letter A stamped on them, so to speak, and like they can only have 150 of those, and 50 went somewhere else, and that's the challenge? Or are we literally, or do we license, you can have 150 in town at each night, so to speak, and some of them are stamped with A and some of them are stamped with M?
I think I can actually answer that in part, Mr. Chairman. So they placed 150 bikes when the program launched, to my understanding. And the issue is that the bikes don't necessarily stay put. So they keep track to make sure that they're not over that number. But a lot of these bikes have been taken by people who started in Arlington and took them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Some of them, and again, this is not our problem necessarily, but end up in places like my home community of Charlestown. I don't know how they get all the way there.
Yeah.
But anecdotally, I think we've also seen that there are a decent number of bikes that are residing in our neighboring communities, including communities that are in our, that are part of the, consortium of communities involved in it. So.
Okay.
But the math doesn't work on that. I mean, if the average ride is 1.5 miles.
No, 1.5, so I think what they're saying is each physical bike averages 1.5 to 2 trips per day. So like
trips?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They're getting about 150 or 200 trips out of 100 bikes, basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so the thing is, if we say, okay, put in 300 bikes, does that go up to 600 trips? Because if it did, then great. That would say like there's a great demand for this and it's great use. Or would it stay at like the 200 trips and we have a lot of bikes sitting around? John?
So I can say, being in Arlington Center all the time, when this first came out, I had anticipated seeing Lime bikes everywhere in Arlington Center, and I don't. Like, I never have them in front of my office. There's 1 or 2 in the center. You go up and down, my boys in the car, that's their new game, is to spot Lime bikes to see who could spot them first, and they're not spotting as many as they used to. So, I don't find that the bikes that we have in town are overwhelming, and I talked to the town manager about this. There's pockets in town that I think are underserved by this, specifically where I live. I know it's less of a hotspot up on the hill, but I look at my app every day to try to see if there's a Lime bike even within walking distance, and there isn't. So I'd like to see more in town and placed in less hotspot areas, because I might drive down the hill, I might drive back up, I might Uber back up, who knows? But at least to have one in the neighborhood to ride around with the boys is, I think there'll be other people that would concur with that, because it seems like they're centralized in a few different areas. But I think there is definitely capacity in town to add more of these bikes.
Okay. Mrs. Mahan?
It's a really simple question that I just missed the answer. I obviously have missed, not just missed the answer. Is Lime Bike asking for 300, to place 300 bikes in Arlington, or?
So I had just a conversation with the local representative, and, I mean, they're very interested in doing so. They were interested at the start to do 300. As Doug mentioned, they sort of negotiated with Spin to each do 150, but they are interested in doing 300.
And I don't mind approving that tonight, but what I'd like to have a copy of, what their proposed placement of 300, because I can tell you, starting from CVS, the high school, the bank across the street, my neck of the woods, there's lots of Brattle Square, Stop and Shop, Myrack, both properties. So what I'd like to see is, obviously they have enough there. There's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 each. And I know that a couple of the managers at one of the business I cited, because people coming in, the way they're placed, is they're moving them up against the building. So people coming into that particular pharmacy, drugstore won't trip over them. So I have no problem proving that tonight, but I'd like to see, and if they could provide the data, I'd be interested in trip data and things like that. And I do know that the bikes do migrate. I know 2 people that ride them out to Newton, and Newton also is participating in the Lime Bike, but, well, if you go down Common Street, you hang a right, and then you're in there by Hibernian Hall, I know 2 people.
They've got strong legs.
I know, so I'm fine with approving that, but if we could just get it as board info or something like that, if that's okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman, if
totally.
you could
Yeah.
coordinate that with the town manager, thank you.
Kevin?
I'm sorry, John. I spoke already, if you want to.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm okay approving it too. I think I'd echo some of the points that, my colleagues have raised, because I also live up on a hill, and I think, anecdotally, it does look to me like the distribution is not very good to areas up on hills, where I think you might actually get more usage, where people will be willing to hop on them and then come down into the major corridors, rather than having to walk down there. Once you're already down there, then you're in the middle of the entrance. So I'd be interested in seeing what their potential is for experimenting with that, because I'm sure we could find some areas even outside some of the schools and some of the other areas. That's one. And I'd also just like to hear from them if they're doing any further application development to help with some of the parking issues of the bikes. I know that there is a report button on the app to report misplaced bike, but I did use Spin before they got out of the business when I was down in South Carolina earlier in the summer. And when you unlock a bike, every single time you unlock a bike, it prompts you and says, was this bike well parked? Or was this bike badly parked? And you just click yes or no. And it seems very simple, and I don't know if they're putting any more investment into that, but it'd be great to have that conversation.
Kevin?
Well, while I have moved, I was going to talk about that on the new business, but I was amazed at the number of bikes that were left in front of my house on Mystic Street. The reason they're not on the hills, because they park them and then they walk up the hills.
Correct,
You know, up
correct.
the
So the
road.
redistribution, we'd want them to redistribute up top, so, yeah.
But Dan, was your point on the statistics that there is 150 bikes in Arlington, but every day 50 of them leave the town? Is that?
My point was that I don't feel like we're actually seeing the effects of 150 yet. We're only seeing the effects of 100.
Okay.
And so I was a little bit nervous about tripling, so to speak. I mean, in some ways it's doubling, in some ways it's tripling. I've been persuaded by this conversation. I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note 2 things. If it seems like I'm speaking out of turn on this as town council, it's because our transportation planner, Nat Strasburg, was the lead contact on this. And after Nat departed, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. I'm sorry.
He's still alive.
I know, the way you said it.
Sorry, Nat.
Very much alive.
Sorry, Nat.
Well, academia is death, but anyway.
Yeah. And the other piece is that we do know that Lyme has been sharing their data with the planning department, and they've started going through analysis.
Yeah, I was actually I was going to say one thing that I have been really pleased with is the data that we're getting out of them, because I had an exchange with Nat, and where he gave me a couple CSV files that were really fascinating to me, and then in response to this, they popped up some other data, and they also said, and by the way, you've got access to this data yourself every night when you log in, and so I have been actually, at least anecdotally, I've been very happy with the data, which is another reason to make me say, all right, we'll be able to see what this looks like. Okay. All right, for discussion. We have a motion by Mr. Greeley, seconded by Mr. Hurd, I think. I think that's what it was. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Did I get that one right, Marie, or no? All right. Discussion approval, authorized use limitation, 51 Grove Street, DPW yard. Well, I couldn't sleep last night, and so I read Mr. Himes' file.
It's riveting, I know.
Yeah.
If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but just for the sake of making sure that the millions and millions know what's going on, pursuant to a settlement agreement that the town reached back in 2001 with the industrial parties with respect to some old contamination under the DPW yard located at 51 Grove Street. We were required to file what's called an authorized use limitation and provide a grant of use restriction and access easement. This really actually doesn't change anything about what we can do with that site. The site is safely managed because there's hard cap over it, which is essentially mostly asphalt at this point in time. Any renovation that we need to make to the DPW yard is already has to be conducted with a licensed site professional because there was a response action outcome filed with Mass DEP. This is essentially codifying and making it crystal clear to everybody what you can do and what you cannot do on that site. And even if you can't do something just as of basic everyday course, you can do it if you either, in some circumstances, have a licensed site professional making sure that it's done safely, or secondly, get the agreement of the industrial parties that you're gonna have a side agreement if we wanted to repurpose the DPW yard to be something else. We just have to sort of amend what the use restriction is. So all this was voted on by town meeting a long time ago. There's no real further steps that need to be taken other than the board's approval for something that, to be frank, we were supposed to provide quite some time ago. But I think for a variety of reasons that some of the board may recall, was just delayed a little bit while we were making sure that we were satisfied with the industrial parties, both remediation and some other things that they had agreed to provide under the terms of the agreement.
Mrs. Mahan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the final execution of the AUL and grant of use restriction and access easement, as well as to direct the town manager and town council to take any and all further steps necessary to record the notice and make the requisite filings with the DEP.
Thank you, Ms. Mahan.
Motion for Mrs. Mahan. Is there a second?
Second.
I just wanted, because it's a legal thing, say it all, sorry.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0 vote. Correspondence received, Spy Pond sediment removal.
Move receipt.
National Grid contact gas leaks, Lee Humphrey, and reconsideration moratorium on non-emergency gas permits, Deborah Noel.
Move receipt.
Move receipt from Mrs. Mahan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hurd. Any particular referrals for any of these? Mr.
I can tell you that both planning and DPW are already well aware and involved with the first matter, the Spy Pond matter. If you want to refer the second matter to the Gas Leaks Task Force, they've already seen this correspondence, but an official referral would make sense. And then the second, I think, for receipt by the board makes sense.
All right, so do you want number one to refer to the DPW?
Yeah, that's
All right.
fine.
Referring first one to the DPW, second one to the Gas Leak Task Force.
That's fine.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. New business. Mrs. Kapelka.
Nothing to report except for tomorrow we're going to have a town day meeting if someone wants to come from 2 to 4.
Sorry, say that again.
We're going to have a town day meeting here from 2 to 4 with the committee. If
Who
you-
should come to that? Like, who would want to come?
I don't think any of you would, but we're just going to discuss
Got it.
what we're going to do in the new people that are coming in as far as booths and entertainment. But
Got
you're
it.
welcome to come if you want.
Thank you. Mr. Heim.
I have one important piece of new business. Late last week, I don't recall if it was Thursday or Friday, got a little jumbled. The Attorney General's office notified us that they approved our town bylaw changes from the 2018 annual town meeting with one important caveat and one small detail. So changes to the Capital Planning Committee, financial information that goes into mailings, the animal control bylaw, vacant storefront registry, betterment update, the Arlington Commission for Arts and Culture, and tree preservation are all now in effect. However, the gender-neutral bylaw, Article 20, they did not reject it all. They're holding it while the special legislation goes through, so that'll happen at the same time. Representative Garbely transmitted to me, or his staff rather, transmitted to me, he's been working very hard on this, the latest draft of it. It looks good, so hopefully they'll be ready to vote on that relatively quickly. There was one other note that I should also highlight, which is that the fine was seen as too high in the animal control update, which we essentially took from the state statute. So there's a minor sort of blip in there, but it'll essentially remain as it is in terms of one of the fines, the maximum of $300.
Thank you.
Just two pieces of new business. First, I want to say thank you to Doug. As the board knows, I was out of the office on Friday, and the AOF garage decided to collapse. So, so Doug had his hands full, and he stepped up and managed a number of conversations and kept me, and I know the board, well informed through us. I wanted to thank Doug for that, for stepping up in that circumstance. And then didn't actually collapse.
I'm so leaving that alone. I'm just like.
Doug texted me, or no, he called me and he texted me, he said, so the COO of the MBTA wants to talk, and I'm like, about alewife, and I said, I know what he's gonna say.
Exactly.
Just so everybody's clear, that happened at 1 o'clock, so the town was closed at noon. So that's why part of why we had an emergency addendum.
And then second thing, bus rapid transit, public forum Wednesday night, 7 p.m., Town Hall Auditorium. We have actual options for consideration for treatments along the corridor to get the buses moving faster, so should be a good meeting. We're going to treat it as a sort of a public, like 3 stations where each segment of the avenue that we're recommending treatments for, people can stand, listen, learn, ask questions about each section. So we'll be sharing those Wednesday night, encourage the board to attend, and then we'll have to make a decision by October what we actually want to implement for bus rapid transit. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Greeley.
So I have 2 pieces. One, just briefly, last Sunday evening, I was the MC for the Cyrus Dallin Museum fundraiser. Very successful fundraiser, and both, you know, the trustees that we appoint and the nonprofit board and a number of people were there, and I think they raised quite a bit of money, but they do a great job. It's amazing what honor Dallin brings to this community, and worldwide, you know, and not just obviously in the U.S. And my other piece of new business I have put in the form of a haiku. It's related to the Greeley family. We left 363, our new residence we love, it's 5 Russell Place. 575.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So, that was all an act about what's a haiku.
So, I've been working on it since the bikes. No, but, so
you
I,
were writing
know,
that limerick, but we won't go
we
into
literally, there once was a man.
Yeah.
Literally, it's 2 blocks from here, so I should line bike or walk, but my car's out back, so anyhow. But we have moved, and we're staying in Arlington, and honestly, I want to thank so many people who told me they really hoped that we were staying in Arlington. Probably for my wife and kids, but I felt a little bit, but I'm thrilled, and so we're here for a while. I plan on being in this seat for another 30 years. Other than that, no new news, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mahan.
I tingle with anticipation. And I will not become the senior member on the board, and you can maintain that honor. Just one piece of new business, and I'm sort of at, and I've had conversations with the town manager, and it's my fault that I haven't had a chance to discuss this with the chairman, but I anticipate it would be the chairman and town manager, and however I can. And I will send to the select board's office, I think the most pertinent email to send to my colleagues as an FYI. And this has to do with Algonquin Gas out behind Sunnyside. It's come to light that we now know that Algonquin Gas will be coming in every 7 years. They informed DCR, but I don't know any notification that we got. They're coming in every 7 years. And there's been some calls from the neighbors in terms of nothing that I think is too extreme. And one is a question. Well, there are 2 questions. Number one, obviously DCR is notified or is already on notice that this is going to happen every 7 years. Is there anything that DCR, through the current chair and or the town manager, can kind of stay on top of that, so when they know they're coming in, because I know when Algonquin Gas, I can't say that altogether, Algonquin Gas first came in, and Don Muck, he was the town manager, he always worked to sort of get some mitigation. And what they're asking for, which I think is pretty reasonable, is, and I'm not sure if Adam's on this, but they're basically saying, you know, they're coming in, tearing up the road, if they can just let the neighbors know through the town, through the chairman, what mitigation they'll do to patch that. They anticipate they might just throw some gravel stones in there. And like I said, I'll forward this email to everybody. The other question they had is, you know, if they are coming in every 7 years, could there be some notification to the town manager or the chairman of the select board, like a year in advance, so that everybody's aware of it and we can coordinate this and the understanding's made. And then they just have a few questions, because when they come down, they rip up everything on the road, including whatever neighbors plant stuff out there, which is minimal. But one of the questions they had was, in talking with some of the workers that are out there right now, why this work couldn't shift down to the end of Sunnyside where there are no homes. You know, it doesn't abut the back of people's homes. Because I guess from what they understand, and I'm not saying this is the actual of what's being done, this work needs to be done in this generalized area. And you know how it is, you could come up to me and I could be a worker and I could say, well, yeah, of course we could do it down there. Well, maybe we can't. So I'm gonna, and I don't know if the town manager, I know we've had some conversations about this. We didn't find out about it till the neighbors did. And when I was talking to Clarissa Rowe a couple of days ago, she was like, oh, those poor neighbors are going through it again. So I'd like to see if maybe the chairman and the town manager can kind of brainstorm after I send out this email and see if there's anything we can do right now in the short term, and if there's something we can set up for the future. They're not complaining they're coming in every 7 years. They just want to, because you know, some people may be there the next 7, 14, 21, but there's going to be a lot of turnover. So we don't keep going through this. So. Is that okay?
Yes. Sure.
So I'll make sure that's forwarded through the select board's office to everybody as an FYI, including the town manager. I apologize. I thought he was on here, but he's not.
Great. Will do. Anything else?
Thank you, no.
Mr. Aaron.
I just wanted to mention one thing, kind of going off of what Adam had talked about. I've been taking a few calls on the bus rapid transport. I think there's a lot of people that are talking out there, and not all of it is the correct information. So I just invite people to come to the discussion and see where we really are in the process and what we're looking for and be part of the conversation.
I just quickly wanted to note that as we all know, the Youth Villages is closing their Arlington campus. I did attend last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, a neighborhood conversation. There was actually a conversation included neighbors as well as representatives of the Order of St. Anne who used to own that portion of the property and are actually impacted by the shutdown of the institution as well. There were a lot of questions at the neighborhood meeting. There's nothing immediately, obviously, for this board, but it's something for us to be aware. It's a very large piece of property. It's not clear what Youth Village's timetable is or what their intent is for the property, but I rather suspect we're going to get more questions as time goes on. There probably 30 or 40 folks came out on a Thursday night up at Park Ave, UCC. So just wanted to report on that and something for us to just keep our ear to the ground on.
Thank you. 3 quick things. One, started the process of interviewing candidates for treasurer. The subcommittee met. We reviewed a bunch of resumes, then we did first round interviews, and we've set up our callback list for the second round. And I think we're generally pleased with the pool of candidates for treasurer.
Can you say about how many approximately?
We had, I'm going to say either 25 or 30 for the first set of resumes. Was it? I think it was a 20. It was between 20 and 30. 8 we did for the second round, and for the first round, and we're calling 3 back for the second round.
Thank you.
Second is, this is our last meeting before September 4th, which is primary day. So everybody get out and vote, right, Mrs. Kropalko? And the third, and which means that our next meeting is after Labor Day, which means no more summer dress code. That's all I got.
No new business, so move to adjourn?
If I may just, my say, I'm going to be here another 30 years. Please don't read that as I am running again. I'm glad I can finish this term. We'll see in the spring, but anyhow.
And I thought that was a campaign announcement.
I know, I realize that, so.
Still move to adjourn.
I just want to monitor.
Non-debatable, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
You know what, the wing?